Yarmoda Pelge Drolor Zambe Zebarche Palde Lame Shabla Solvade Omo A Guru Vajradhara Sumatimo Nisha Sane Karma Uta Vardanya Shri Bad Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhar Sumatimo Nishasane Karm Uta Vardanya Shri Bad Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhar Sumatimo Nishasane Karma Uta Vardanya Shri Bad Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Pakyuke Kudan Dagelu Pakyuke Sundan Dagema Pakyuke Tudan Dageyi Tenyerme Chiktu Chingelu Makyuke Kudan Dagelu Makyuke Sundan Dagema Makyuke Tudan Dageyi Tenyerme Chiktu Chingelu Dagi jinso gibe sonam ki Drola pinchre sange druparesho Sange chedan sogi chonam la Chancho pardo dani kyapsuchi Dagi jinso gibe sonam gi Drola pinchre sange drupa Sange chedan sogi chonam la Chancho pardo dani kyapsuchi Dagi jinso gibe sonam ki Drola pinchre sange druparshu. In the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment. Through the practice of generosity and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. Duce tamche mitakpa. All composed phenomena are impermanent. Sakche tamche dungalwa. Everything that is impure is of the nature of suffering. Nature of suffering. Che tamche tongshin dakmeba. Che tamche tongshin dakmeba. All phenomena are of the nature of emptiness and lack an autonomous existence. Nyangele debe shiwao. Beyond suffering is peace. So, all composed phenomena are impermanent. We have seen this morning this part, and we have seen the aspect that actually, even though we live in an impermanent reality, it appears to us as if it's permanent, and we went down to look how and why and so on. And we came down to one of the main points, which is the fact that things constantly change because they interact with each other. Okay? So, this interaction, how does it happen? And how are we present within this interaction? What happens is that every action that we do, every choice that we make, every word that we say, even every thought that we have, interacts with everything else. And a question that very often we do is, how come this have happened? Why? We love asking why very often. But very often the problem is not in not finding the answer, the problem is making the wrong question. And if we ask why, but we intend in our why that the cause is only one, and we try to look for the cause to blame, we will never find it. Because it doesn't exist. Each and everything that happens because there are countless causes and conditions which made it happen as such. There's countless interactions that makes it to be like that. I take, for instance, a stupid example, the glass of water that I have here drinking. How come I have this nice and cool water here? Because we used to have a water filter here in the center. The water filter had some problems. The maintenance company would not come even after calling for months and months. So finally we needed to change filter. So we look and we found out another company that they give a good maintenance because we take it for rent and we don't buy the filter. I don't go through a whole history for you. And we asked for a filter that makes hot water and natural temperature, and it brought us a filter that makes hot water and cold water. So finally I have cold water. And I can tell the whole story between it. And there are many, many, many parts that interact. And the fact is that there are many small things that have happened which determine the fact that now I have this water here that I'm very happy with. But if we look to it, each one of the things that have happened, was that the reason why this is here now? No. But would it be here in the same way how it is now without that specific thing? Also not. So if we take any situation and we ask why, in a monotheistic context, most probably the answer will be, this is like this because God wanted so, such. That's God's wish. That's what we listen often sometimes, no? What would be the Buddhist answer? It's like this, why? Because causes and conditions were there for it to be as such. Which were the causes? Which were the conditions? I have no idea. It's too complex to understand because there are too many. You know, so in front of the question why things have happened in this way, why is this like that, why is that like that, the only answer that I find is because there are countless causes and conditions which make things to be as they are. I can see a small part of them, but I cannot see the whole picture. So, if we look from that perspective, one small action, one thought, one word said, one word listened, one choice made, how important is that in the whole context of something? In a way, we would say, completely meaningless, There are so many causes, so many interactions. This is just one tiny small interaction. So it's not powerful, doesn't mean much. True. But at the same time, it means everything. Because without that very small, tiny part, the whole would be different. It didn't happen only because of that, but without that part, it would not be in the same way. It would have been different, most probably. It could have been similar, but not exactly the same. So, one example that I like giving a lot, it's a little long, and I said already many times this example, but I like it a lot. If we think, for instance, that we are here today, okay? We are here today thanks to Lama Michel Rinpoche that came, gave the teachings here. I met him, many of us have met him, and through many conditions, through his kindness and wisdom, we are here today in the center, okay? So, how come Rinpoche came to the West? Let's see if we go to look behind what had happened. In the 70s, Rinpoche one time was in India, where he was living, and he had prepared everything for him to do a long-term retreat. So he was starting with minimum 1 year retreat, and then he was going for a longer-term retreat. He prepared the house, he organized people to help him to bring him food, he organized how he would get the resources to be able to stay 1 year without going out of the house to make his retreat. He organized everything. Then he went to one of his friends called, his name was Geshe Tenzin Wangyal, Genlakpala, who later was one of my teachers. So he went to Genlakpala and he told to Genlakpala, Genla, I am going to retreat for 1 year. And Genlakpala said to him, oh really? If I was in you, I would not be able to do not even 100 mantras in this retreat. And he asked, why? He said, with all the depths that you have around, can you relax making mantras, Because what happened was that Lama Ganche would go around to the houses of the families to do ceremonies and blessings and healing. And whenever a very poor family, and they were all very poor at that time there, they would be in difficulty and they would ask him for help. He didn't have any money. But he would go to another family that he had a good connection. They had a little bit more, so he would make a loan with them and would give as a present to those that need it. So it's a sort of Robin Hood that will ask loans instead of rob from people, But the fact that after he needed to pay back these people, and then he didn't have the money for that. So he was always a little bit into that. So he had a lot of debts around. And the fact was people would never go to him out of respect for him. They would not go so much to ask him. So he would go to his friend and try to see if somehow they could manage him to say something. As a consequence of that, Lama Ganchen didn't go into retreat. He had an invitation from the king of Sikkim, which is in north of India, to go there to help to heal his mother, the mother of the king. So Lama Ganchen went to Sikkim, and he did the whole process of healing for the eyes, with the practice of eye-opening Chenrezig. And there, he cured he did a healing for the mother of the king. And his idea was, I stay 3 months there, get some offerings, make some money, go back to south of India, pay all the debts, and go into retreat. That was his plan. But what happened was that he became so well known there that from before sunrise, people were already in lines in front of his room. It was like in a courtyard. People was already in front of his room to ask for blessings and ceremonies and healing. So the 3 months there became 3 years. And in between in this 3 years' time, he ended up going to Nepal for a long life for one Tibetan New Year, where a family of disciples offered to him a long life ceremony. And in that ceremony, who was present was a friend of this family. There was a Greek man called Yurgo. And Yurgo had a center in Lesbos, in Greece, called Karuna Center, and he invited Lama Ganchen to come to Greece. And finally Lama Ganchen accepted after a long process of insisting and so on. So my question, and this opened the door for Lama Ganchen to come to the West and for us to be here today. So my question is, no one can really know the right answer, but I suppose, what would have happened if Genlakpala would have just said, okay, beautiful, go to retreat? Would we be here today? Probably not. What would have happened if Yurgo didn't have the courage to follow his feelings and to invite Lama Ganchen? Or to insist? Most probably, we would not be here today. And like this I can go on and on and on and on. Was because of that specific thing that the whole thing happened? No. But without that, most probably, it would not be as it is. It's like if we are all holding together a very heavy table. And if I let it go, alone I don't hold the weight of the table, but if I let go, no one else is able to keep it. So finally the table falls. Not because of me, but because that each part is important. So, or it's like the example of the snowflake that bends the leaf. When it snows on a leaf, the example is a Japanese example that says, the snowflakes that bends the bamboo leaf. No? Means every snowflake is so light, but suddenly one snowflake falls and the leaf bends. Was it because of that snowflake? No, it was because of all the others that fell before. But without that snowflake, it was not bending. So it was because of that snowflake, yes and no. It was because of that in the same way that it was because of all the others that came before. So each and every action, every word we say, every thought we have, every choice we make, they determine our own future. And someone may say, oh, but that's really little, how to say, I get a little bit afraid of that, I cannot relax, every action is important. Yes, it is. There is no such thing as I do something and then nothing will come from it. Once we say something, it's not anymore ours, in the sense that it says it's already interacting with others and it will bring results. And we will feel, and we will experience the result. In other words, every one of us, we are completely free to do anything we want, but we are not free from the consequences of our own actions. You like to do something that is against the law, do it. But after you need to pay the consequences. So, this brings that the interaction between parts, which is a manifestation of impermanence. For me, it's very beautiful. Because why is possible for me to become a Buddha? Because I am impermanent. And if I interact in the good way, I can gradually change my mind, change my body, change my reality. If I interact in a negative way, I will make to myself more and more suffering as things go on. It's the same rule, it's the same basis. It's not that impermanence is bad. Impermanence is just how things are. And then it depends how we interact with it. But at the same time, impermanence is showing our freedom. Our freedom lies within our small actions. Our freedom lies within, do I take it or I don't take it? Should I say that or maybe better I don't say it? Do I manifest my emotion or not? Do I follow that thought or I don't follow that thought? That's where our true freedom lies. And that's what really makes the difference. The difficulty is that while we are living the present, we are not able to see the whole picture of the future. But every action, every thought, every choice, every word, it's fundamentally important in the whole thing. And again, someone may say, oh, but that's heavy. Somehow, yes. The truth is that every action, it's important and at the same time it's not the one that determines everything, but another way it is. I don't know, it's difficult to put it into words because it looks contradictory. But actually it is not. It's like nothing happens because of one single cause, but nothing happens also because of each and every cause. So every action is fundamentally important. That's what we call also as karma. Karma literally means action. I make a cause, I make an action. This action interacts with other things called conditions, and then I have the results myself. So self-responsibility. This understanding takes away from us the attitude of being the victim, victimizing ourselves. We are victims of no one other than our own actions that interacts with the actions of others. Because sure, the action of others have an impact on me. They are conditions. But I would never experience what I experience if it didn't depend on the actions which I did myself in the past. So I am the victim of no one. I am the result of a complex interdependence between my own choices and the choices of others. Okay. So, within this, what does it bring to us finally? In our daily basis. The fact that we need to be careful with every action that we do, with every choice that we make. These at the same time give a sensation, for me it gives a strong sensation of freedom. It is what allows me to become a Buddha. We will see that tomorrow on the fourth one. But this is actually what gives us this freedom. To say, I can change. I can make my own reality as I want. Not from one moment to the other, but by directing every action, every choice. And this can make the difference. Things take time, but it's possible. Okay? Otherwise, sometimes it's like this. Oh, I would like so much to have money. It's not just that I don't have money. It's unjust that I don't have money. Do you work? No. But others have money without working and I don't. Okay, they have created the causes in these or other lives. You know, to have an inheritance or something, whatever, that allows them to have so. Did you have that? No. Oh, but I still like money also. Then work. I don't find work, the one that I want. Okay? Sure, there are many people with a lot of difficulties regarding to work. I'm not judging that. I'm just saying that very often we put ourselves as victims. But at the same time, we don't want to put the effort to create causes. Another example. I want to have a good health, and it's unjust that I don't have. Oh, how come I am sick? In these past years, did you follow the advices that were given to you on the way how to eat? Did you take good care of your health? Did you live in an unhealthy way? Yes. Did you follow the advices? No. Then that's it, you know. So, I cannot expect to have always a good health while I eat badly, I'm constantly in negative emotions, and I live in a bad environment. It doesn't work. So, and on the other time, and someone can say, but it's not just because I really take good care of my health, I eat well, I take care of all my emotions, and suddenly here I am sick, you know. Yes. Because the interdependence is very complex. There are many, many, many causes together, and we have no real awareness of all of them, and we cannot have control of everything. But what we can do is to do the best within our own abilities to act in a consistent way, which we say, what the word we use normally is to act in a conscientious way. To act in a conscientious way means I will do what I know that is good, and I will avoid what I know that is harmful. This is the best way, and we are not able to do in all aspects right away, but that's the direction that we go from this. So which means, I know that it's harmful to drink this, but I really like it. What I do? I don't drink. oh, I would like to eat that, but it's not good to me. What I do? I don't eat. Or what I like the taste, but I don't do. That desire sooner or later fades away. You know? It's just one example, but according to our actions of body, speech and mind, we put together what is harmful, what is beneficial, and we follow in a consistent way what is beneficial, and we avoid what is harmful. And by that way, we live in a truly responsible way. Are we still going to do stupid things? Sure, because we are ignorant. And we are not really 100% correct in what is harmful and what is beneficial. But we start from the basis of having this consistent attitude of abandoning what is harmful and cultivating what is beneficial. This means relying upon the law of karma. This means I don't want to be harmed, so better I don't do this that will bring me harm. I don't want to get sick, so I'm not going to create the causes for sickness to come. So we need to empower ourselves on the power of every action that we do. Which is not that suddenly something happens and a big result comes out of it. It's many, 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 many small actions that put together make that result. And every small part is very, very powerful. I know it may not be so easy to listen to this and to think about it. For me, it's so beautiful, personally speaking. Because this gives me, it's possible to change, you know. And it depends on every small part. And I don't have the whole picture. I just have a small part of the picture of the whole thing. But I must do my small part. So when we talk about impermanence, it brings us self-responsibility of every action, because the interaction means that every action is important, which means also another way is the law of karma. Okay. So now I will go to the next seal, otherwise we can stay the whole weekend and even more on the first one, okay? Sakche tamche dungalva. Okay, ripetete. Sakche tamche dungalva. All that is impure is of the nature of suffering. The second seal says, everything that is impure is of the nature of suffering. We need to understand what we mean by impure, but not only that. First of all, it's more important for us to understand our own view regarding this seal. As we said before, when we regarded the first seal, that everything that is all the composed phenomena are of the nature or are impermanent, and we saw that we see impermanent phenomena as being permanent, and a Buddha sees impermanent phenomena as being impermanent. That's the main difference, actually. When it comes to the second seal, the point is, where do we project our happiness and where do we project our suffering? In other words, why do I suffer? But we should not go to look for the answer in a conceptual way. Let's look in our true experience. When we are suffering, with sadness, with anxiety, with anger, with jealousy, whatever is the emotion through which our suffering manifests, how do we experience it? I am feeling this and I am suffering because this happened and I reacted in this way within my emotions and it manifested in that way, or I am suffering because this and that happened. Normally, why am I angry? Because you said, the other one did. Why I feel jealousy? Because you did this and you were not supposed to do it. Why I feel envy? Because he did that and I don't like it. Why I feel fear? Because of this and that and like this and all. So, in essence, we live our lives as if our inner state of emotions would be the result of the world that surrounds us. So we are a victim of the world, in other words. Okay. And that's how we think most of the times. That's how we act. Even if conceptually we think different. You know? So an example that we can see very often is people that say, oh yes, the law of karma and the causes of suffering is the actions, the karma, and the mental defilements. That's the root of all suffering. That's why I suffer, and so on. But then when something happens, oh, that's, because he did this and that, and he did that. We right away blame someone by pointing the finger. Or it's like when people say, I truly believe in the law of karma. I cannot experience anything that I have not created the causes for. But then, when something good happens, we say, oh, look how good karma I have. When something bad happens, we right away blame and say, oh, that's his fault. Okay? This means we understood conceptually, but we do not really realize it. The point that we are talking here is not understanding, it's realizing. In a practical level, deeply, where do I project my happiness? Where do I project my own suffering? That's fundamentally important. Because if I believe that my emotions, and I can recognize that anger is not good for me, and jealousy is not good for me, and fear is not good for me, but if I believe that these emotions are the result of the conditions in which I am, I will constantly try to make a perfect world around me. I will constantly try to do things to be as I think they should be. If everything would be as I think it should be, then I would be happy. That's not true. What happens when conditions change? In other words, have we ever experienced in our life that conditions have changed, which means different people, different context, and we go through the same dynamic? And we enter into the same suffering? Did it ever happen? I would say yes, for most of us. Change the name, change the place, change the person, and when we see, there we are once again. And I'm quite sure the older we get in life, the more experience we have, the more we know about this, the more we see that we are in a cyclic way. And in other words, if we do not solve something within ourselves, we will continue to experience it. Then there are moments in which we are able to close a cycle and change something. And then even if we are in that same condition as before, we don't experience it anymore in that way. In other words, using the metaphor of before, until I have pink glasses, I will see the world pink. Until my glasses are dirty, I will see the world that I cannot see things clean. So, when we say that everything that is impure, which means that is polluted by ignorance, by selfishness, by anger, by hatred, by insatisfaction, by jealousy, by envy, by fear, and so on, it will be of the nature of suffering. It doesn't matter where I go, with whom I am, what conditions I create. If I am still angry, I will suffer. And if we have a lot of anger, it doesn't matter how much we change places, we keep being angry. If we are a very jealous person, we will bring our jealousy wherever we go. That's why it says that there is nowhere to escape. Because sometimes people come to me and say, oh Lama, I would like so much to take some vacations from myself. That's not possible. We can change family, we can change the sense that I can change the people that I interact with, I can change my body in different ways, I can change the places where I am, the job that I do, but I cannot be away from myself. I can change myself, yes, but I cannot suddenly get away from myself. Okay? So the essence here is that our inner state, our emotions, are not the result of the external world and the conditions in which we live. Instead, the way how we experience the reality is a result of our inner emotions. Okay? Because our tendency is, I am angry. Why? Because you did, the other one said. That's our tendency. But when we go really to analyze, and if we go deeper, we will see that actually it's not like that. And the main issue here is that there is no point in making a perfect world. We need to change, we need to make a perfect way of dealing with the world, the way how we relate to it. That's what really makes the difference. And this is something that is truly, truly fundamental in Buddhism, because it changes very much the way how we experience. And there is one example that I just remember, one story which, for me, I like very much. It touched me very much when I heard it. I don't remember now the names, but who told me was very near to this person. So it's like, it's not some far away story. Okay. Happened that in the 1960, more or less, 61 maybe, from 59 onwards, many Tibetans came out of Tibet and they went to India. And there was, when they arrived as refugees in India, all the monks, the Indian governments gave all the monks 3 possibilities to all the refugees. They said, okay, if you like to work, we give you work working on the road construction, which was quite hard work, or going to the army. If you like to continue to be monks, we create a place for the monastic community. In the north of India, there was one ex-jail from the time of the British. And there was a jail where Mahatma Gandhi stayed for some time. The place was called Buxa. And they gave that place for the monks to stay. It was in the middle of the forest. It was quite a harsh place to be. Anyhow, many of them went there. A few thousands of monks that were there. And there was one monk who was an older monk in the sense that not very old person, but with a lot of experience. He had some disciples. He was very much respected. And then one day he decided to go for a retreat. So he went away from that community, walking to the mountains, and he found a cave somewhere for him to stay. And his disciples knew he was there, and from time to time they would bring him food and so on. And he was staying there doing his meditation and retreat. One day, while he was walking around to get some firewood or to have a walk, whatever reason, he met with some Indian military soldiers. And the soldiers, they caught him and they thought that he was a spy from Pakistan. So basically, they took him to the military base, wherever, police station, wherever it was, and they started to question him. And he didn't speak a word of any language that they couldn't understand each other. Even Tibetan he would not speak well, because he spoke only a dialect of Tibetan, actually, you know. And even that at the time was the very beginning of the relationship between Indians and Tibetans. So no, they could not understand at all each other. And they thought he was lying and he was a spy. So sure, they were not so gentle with him. But the fact is that they kept him there for 2 years in jail. And on the monastery, on the community, his disciples, they went to look for him. They saw all his stuff in the place where he was staying, but he was never coming back. So they thought that he was killed by some wild animals. There were many around in the forest there. So they made all the ceremonies for when someone dies, for the bardo and the prayers, and they grieved that he died. He was the teacher of many of them. You know, all this process went on. And 4 years later, he arrived there. Then he told what had happened. Basically, when he arrived there, he was put into jail. They questioned him. He could not understand what was happening. But suddenly he found himself in a place that was protected from rain and cold. They were giving him food. And he said to himself, that's the most wonderful condition I have. I don't need to go around to look for food. I am in a protected place, which means protected from the cold and so on. I will continue my retreat. So he sat there to meditate. And 2 years later, most probably these guys, they saw that this person was there all the time meditating. You know? So after 2 years, they said to him, okay, now you are free to go. And the student was not a spy. And he said, now you are free to go. And what happened is that he said, no, they couldn't communicate so well. So basically, they put him out of the jail and he would run back in. And he would come back into jail. He didn't want at all to go out because he hadn't finished his retreat. So finally, after happening that many times that they put him out, he run back in, they put him out, he run back in. Finally, what they did was that they gave a place where he could stay, that he didn't have a closed door. At any moment, he could go out, and they continued to give him food. And he stayed there for another 2 years. And after 4 years total, he had finished his retreat. So he went back to the monastery, you know. And when he arrived there, people looked at him like if he had come back from the land of the dead, you know, like. And my point was that for him was a wonderful opportunity. If it was me or most of us, it would have been like torture. Because it depends what we have inside, how we experience from within, you know. There's another story, not the same, but somehow similar. There was a French, I think he was French, a French mathematician during the Second World War. Because he was a pacifist and he didn't accept going to war, they put him in jail. And he stayed something like 14 or 17 years in jail, I don't remember. And in his biography, he says that the best thing that could have ever happened to him was that he was put in jail. Because when he was in jail, that was when he got all the mental space and time to develop his mathematical theorem. And he is very important in the whole mathematical history. He developed very, very important, how to say this in English, theorem? A theorem. He developed very important ones, based on prime numbers and things like that. So he did a very important job. And he said, if I was outside of jail, between family, wife, children, work, this, that, then I would have never had the time in my mind to do what I did. So I'm so grateful for what have happened. And I had the most beautiful time while I was there. Inside the whole mathematical world where he was. The other one was in his meditation world. He was in his mathematical world. But what I want to say is that depending how we are inside, we experience the world outside. On the other side, there are conditions that most of us would say that's so beautiful to be there. And many people experience it as a torture. You know? Because of how they manifest their own inner emotions. So the point is that the solution is not to change the world around us, but it's to change the way how we relate to the world. Our emotions such as anger, jealousy, pride, miserliness, fear, and everything is not a result of the world in which we are living right now. They manifest through these conditions, but if we do not have them inside, they would never manifest. So what we need to change is to change the way how we relate to the world and not change the actual world around us. So when Buddha said everything that is impure is of the nature of suffering, means it doesn't matter where we go, with whom we are. We can be with the most beautiful person of this world. You know? When we still have jealousy, when we still have envy, when we still have fear, when we still have anger, we will project sooner or later into that person. And we can make from heaven hell, if our mind is in hell. So, we could go on with many examples of this. Even the cousin of Buddha, his name was Devadatta. He was so envious of Buddha since they were young. He tried to kill Buddha 5 times. And there are many stories about that, you know. And he became monk in order to try to put away Buddha as head of the community. because he wanted to go against Buddha, and he saw Buddha as something negative because he manifested his own. And we can go to anyone. So as long as I have anger, selfishness, ignorance, jealousy, pride, miserliness, and so on, I will relate myself to the world through these emotions, and I will make anything impure. And I will relate to it finally with suffering. So, all impure phenomena, and an impure phenomenon is not something that by itself is impure. It's something that becomes impure, it's called impure because it's seen through an impure eye. It's seen through a lens that is dirty. It will be of the nature of suffering. Okay? So, I think it's quite clear, right? Yes. So now we go a little bit more deep into this point, which is very important. Once we understand that all that is impure is of the nature of suffering, this opens a door to a big universe about mental defilements, understanding better the mind, what is a correct behavior or what it is not, and so on. So actually each one of the four seals is like a door for a whole world behind each one of them. And today we are just knocking at the door and looking at it, okay? We're not like really, we open a little bit, look inside, we don't go through the whole thing. But when going through the mental defilements as the cause for our suffering mainly, which is the aspect that I think all of us, we have already tried to eliminate a negative thought. There is a thought that we have and we don't like that thought and we try to eliminate it. Normally what happens? It goes away or it sticks even more. It gets worse. Basically try to take that thought and put it away, and what happens? It bumps back into us and it remains a stick there. The image that comes to my mind is like if we have something in our hands that is very sticky, and the more we try to put it away, the more it sticks back. Okay? So, in our natural way, what do we do to eliminate thoughts and emotions that we don't like? For instance, sadness, or fear, or any negative emotion that we don't like. How do we do to eliminate it? Because forcing to eliminate it, we know that doesn't work. So how do we do normally, naturally? We think about something else. Yeah? We watch movies. We may drink something to relax the mind and think about something else. Someone will smoke something. I don't know. Each one tries their own way. Okay? Go for a walk. Talk to a friend. Some people like cleaning the garden. I don't know. Whatever you like to do to take away the mind from that makes us suffer. The fact is that when we forget about the sadness, for example, does this mean that the sadness really goes away? No. What happens in the moment that the conditions are away? Maybe something, we see something, we listen to something, and there it comes back again. And then again we need to go watch another movie, then we have already seen the whole catalog, what I do now. Okay? And then we take refuge into other things to try to take away our mind from there. In a way, we understood something into this, but there is one important part of the puzzle that is missing. That is, yes, we cannot take away the thoughts that we don't like, or the emotions that we don't like, which we normally call mental defilements. The definition of mental defilement in Tibetan, which is called nyomon, is which means that when manifested brings the person to a strong state of unpeacefulness. Okay? For example, desire. When we really want something so much, we have a lot of desire. What is the inner experience? Peace or unpeacefulness? Unpeacefulness. Because basically, if desire would be pleasurable, then publicity would not work anymore, right? We would go around through the shop, window shopping and we go and we look at the things and say, oh, how beautiful that, I would like this so much, oh, how nice. But truly what happens is that the stronger is the desire, the stronger we lack peace, and the more because of that we want that object. Very often not because of the object itself, because we don't want to have that inner feeling of unpeacefulness anymore. So, how do we know if something is a mental defilement or not? Any aspect that manifests in our mind that brings us to a strong state of unpeacefulness is a mental defilement. How do we eliminate them? By pushing them away? No. By putting our energy into the so-called antidote. Another example is, if there is light and there is darkness, if it's very good for me to recognize where is the shadow. It's very important for me to recognize where is the darkness. But once I recognize it, where do you put my energy? Into bringing light. Not into focusing in the dark. When I see there is a problem or a sickness, for example, it's very, very important to have the correct diagnosis. But once I have the correct diagnosis, it's not enough to say, oh, I have this sickness, then it is like that, and stay pointing the finger to the sickness. I need to apply my energy where? Into the medicine, into the cure. Once I see the problem, which is very important to see it, where I need to put my energy? Into the solution. Otherwise the problem will not go away. Complaining about the problem and pointing the finger to the problem will not take it away. But going to look for a solution without understanding the problem also doesn't work. Taking medicine without having a clear diagnosis also doesn't work. So it's wonderful that we see our own defilements and we understand what is harming us, which attitude we have, and so on. But once we do that, where we need to put our effort? In the antidote. For instance, the more I complain, the more I criticize, the more unsatisfied I will be, and the more I will suffer. The more I rejoice, and the more I am grateful, thankful, the more I will be satisfied, and the more I will be happy. So, it depends where we put our energy. Okay? So in this whole process, we need to put the energy into the antidotes, and this is not something that happens from one day to the other. But the first step is that we recognize our defilements, and before putting strong energy into the antidotes, the first step is to stop following the defilements. For example, I feel anger. Okay. It's fine that I'm feeling anger, but I'm not going to speak out of it. I'm not going to verbalize it. I am not going to make choices out of that anger. I'm not going to act out of that anger. Let it there. It is also impermanent. Remember that. And as it appears, sooner or later it will fade away. Because every time that we act in accordance to any of the defilements, we make it stronger. Every time I speak out of anger, I make that anger stronger. Every time I act out of anger, I make that anger stronger. The same thing is with jealousy, with miserliness, with arrogance, with any defilement. The more I go away and I satisfy my desires, the more the desire gets stronger and the more things I need. So basically, what happens is that the first step is I feel that negative emotion. That's fine. We are here, we are ignorant, we are here to learn, to deal with it. But I don't follow it. I do not manifest it physically. Second step, I do not manifest it verbally. Third step, I'm able not to feel it. And to put my mind in another direction. But in the meantime, do I have anger? Yes. Jealousy? Yes. Arrogance? Whatever. And what shall we do with this? When it appears, don't follow it. Leave it there. Don't give importance to it. Don't listen to it. Let it talk. But don't listen to it. And as we let it be, sooner than later it will fade away. The more we listen to it, the more we follow it, the stronger it will become. Okay? We are not faking anything. We are just making a choice. Next level, we direct our energy. We don't follow it and we put energy in an opposite way. I am insatisfied. What I need to do? Rejoice. Be grateful. Say thank you. In order to generate an opposite state of mind. But first thing, stop following. Okay? And in this whole process, there are 3 levels. First is that the first level of a practitioner, which are called the 3 difficulties. The first difficulty, or the first level, is when we are able to see our defilement manifesting, but we are not able to control it. So basically, I see myself getting angry. I know that it's not good, but there am I shouting and doing whatever. I see that I should not follow that desire, but I'm not able to control it. I see that I am acting out of arrogance, but I'm not able to control it. That's the first step. Because the state before that is when we manifest emotions without even seeing what is happening. So the first sign that we are going on the correct path is when we are able to have awareness of our own negative emotions as they manifest. In the very beginning, we have awareness just after they have manifested. That's already a good sign. Then as we go on, we start having awareness as they manifest, but we still have no control over anything. That's part of the process. The second step, called the second difficulty, is when the defilement manifests and we are able not to follow it, but not for very long. And then suddenly, there we are again. Third difficulty, give continuity to the second. The negative emotion manifests. I do not follow it verbally, physically. I do not give space to it. I apply an antidote. I'm not able to remain in that until that emotion fades away. The more I'm able to do that, the weaker and weaker that negative attitude or behavior or emotion becomes. Okay? But it's part of the process that we see it coming and we are not able to deal with it. That's part of the process. Okay? So, first level, be aware of it. Second level, be aware and is able not to follow it for some time, but not for very long. Third level, be able not to follow it until it fades away. Okay? Another part related to our defilements that I'd like to share with you, as the last thing for today, is the fact that there are 3 different ways how to deal with our defilements. Let's take, for instance, anger. First level, it is that, okay, we need to understand that it's not possible to eliminate or to develop an antidote while we are strongly with that negative emotion. I cannot practice patience, which is the antidote for anger, when I am angry. It doesn't work. I don't know if you have ever tried to convince someone that is angry that what he's doing is not right. What happens? If someone is angry and you say, come on, don't be angry, you become an object of anger also. So, to ourselves, the last moment that we should meditate on patience is when we are angry. But what happens is that when anger fades away, that's when we need to meditate on patience. We need to put energy in the antidote when the defilement is not fully manifested in the beginning. Otherwise, we are not able to deal with it. So, first step, avoid the object of one's own defilements. This is when the defilement is too strong. But it's very important to remember that this step is only valid if we follow the second one after. Because if I have a lot of anger, and I avoid the object of anger, because I know that if I'm in front of that person or that situation, I cannot hold myself. And I don't want to react like that anymore. So what I do? I get away from that situation. But if I do not use the moment in which I am peaceful to deal with my anger and to develop the antidote and so on, sooner or later I will be again in that situation when I last expect it, and there it will manifest again. Okay? But we remember, we cannot practice patience while we are feeling anger. So, first basic step, make distance from the object of our defilement. At least inner distance. Sometimes we cannot make outer distance. At least give less importance to it. When it's possible, try to make some distance. Okay? This is especially when the defilements are very strong. For example, if I have a lot of desire, and this desire is consuming me, and I know that I cannot have the object of desire, and this is creating many other problems to me and so on, make distance. But when I make distance, I need also to work on satisfaction, need to work on the nature, understanding the nature of desire, and so on, in order to overcome it. Otherwise, in the first moment that I am in front of it, I will jump on it. So, first step, make distance. Put yourself in a safe mode, like, okay, security distance, safety distance. You know? Once I have a safety distance, then I need to enter into the second step. The first alone doesn't work. We must go through the second one. The second is, now that I am in a safe place, now I need to understand, I need to observe myself, I need to recognize that it's my suffering that is creating this, my anger that is creating the situation, and not that situation by itself. I am not a victim of the situation. But what happens is that I have my own wounds, I have my own habits, my own behaviors, and in front of the situation I react negatively, but this is just becoming harmful to me. So that's when I need to go through meditation, I need to go through self-healing practice, I need to go through reflection and analysis, and put energy into gratitude, into patience, into respect, and apply the antidote. And the more I familiarize myself with the antidote, the more, when I will be near to the situation once again, I will react differently. Okay? It's a long process. Okay? It's not a one day or a weekend or a month process. It's a long process. It's a lifetime process, or many lifetimes process. The good thing about this process is when we really do it well, we bring the development of this process to the next life. So that's why it's a lifetimes process. Okay? Third level, that's the very expert level. No hurry to get there. Okay? Because the expert level is danger. It's like, I like to go from here to the other side of the lake. I can walk, I can take a bicycle, I can take a car, I can swim at a certain point, or I can take a helicopter. But I must know how to pilot it. And if I take a helicopter without knowing how to use it, better to walk. So, it can take me very fast, or it can harm me very fast. The traditional example is like if you put a snake inside a pipe, or it will go out up, or it will go out down. There is no middle ways. So the third level, which is we practice normally in Vajrayana, in the Tantra, it's like this. If it works, it's really very powerful. If you do it in the wrong way, it can have an opposite effect. So what is this third level? Now we just enter very superficially about it. Is to recognize, first of all, that every of our defilement, they are coming from the same three roots, which is attachment, attraction, desire, attraction, aversion, from which comes anger and so on, and indifference, okay, from which is ignorance and others. So basically, and then we recognize that each of these emotions, these attitudes, they have a strong part of energy. Deeply there is energy. For example, when we get angry, do we feel some energy coming? There is a strong energy. When we have fear, do we feel energy? Also, actually also when we feel love and when we feel compassion, there is also energy coming from it actually. But now let's talk about the negative part. When we have desire, does it give us strength to get that what we want? We can do anything. When we have hatred, anger, we can, I remember one time we went in a place in a holy mountain in Nepal, and a friend was there together. And we arrived, and this friend had organized the taxi driver to go up to the mountains, to the top of the mountain. Then when the taxi driver arrived at the base of the hill, he said, "I stop here." And then this friend got so angry, and he was there discussing and this or there, and he started complaining that his shoes was not good enough. If he knew he needed to walk up to the mountain, he would have wear the right shoes, and he had just slippers, and this was not right, and he got so angry. And I tried to say something, and I became the object of anger also, as I said before. So it didn't work at all. And suddenly, this friend just started walking, and he reached the top of the mountain before all of us, Because, and there it was, directing the energy of the anger to walk at least, right much before, what are the bad shoes? It didn't mean much. So, what I want to say is that whenever these strong emotions come, they come with a lot of energy. If we know how to direct this energy in a positive, virtuous way, that's very powerful. Like each one of us, we have different ways of, constitutions, physical, mental constitutions. Some of us have more aversion, other of us have more desire, other of us have more indifference. So, if we have a lot of desire, wonderful, more desire. Come on, more desire. But the point is that you should direct this desire for enlightenment. If we see many tankas, they are like painted objects of the pleasures of the senses, they're very sensual paintings and all of this. What's the meaning of that? Direct the desire to enlightenment. I take that energy of desire that is very powerful. Instead of blocking it, I direct that energy to what really, because normally we want something because we believe that will make us happy. And once we fall in love with enlightenment, we take all the strength of our desire and we direct it towards enlightenment. That's very powerful. The danger is we believe that we are directing towards enlightenment, we are using correct desire, but it's just normal desire that we are cultivating. Okay? Anger. We take the energy of destruction of anger, but we direct it to destroy selfishness, to destroy arrogance, to destroy ignorance, to destroy our own negative behaviors, what truly creates suffering. Very powerful, not simple. Ignorance is the most difficult to understand, but ignorance is not seen. So the energy of ignorance is the energy of avoiding something, is the energy of ignoring something. That's the energy of ignorance. So, in few words, I took a long time to understand this. How to transform the energy of ignorance? By not seeing what should not be seen. I tried to make it simple. In related to what we talked before about impermanence. How can I use the energy of ignorance here? Stop seeing, like ignore the permanence of impermanent phenomena. It's tricky, it's not so simple, but instead of ignoring what should be seen, I ignore what should not be seen. There are things that we see that actually don't exist. For example, the permanence of impermanent phenomena. And if we stop seeing them, then we are helping ourselves. But the point here is that ignorance, aversion, and attraction by themselves, just as energy, is not positive or negative. Depends the way how we use it. So if we learn how to use these emotions and its energy to direct them in a virtuous way, we can transform anger into the path to enlightenment. We can transform desire into the path to enlightenment. We can transform ignorance into the path to enlightenment. We can use that energy that comes with it as a way to enlightenment. But remember, that's expert level. Okay? We start by, like anyone to be able to transform must first be able to contain. You cannot transform if you are not able not to follow. You know? For example, Lama Tsongkhapa states very clear that the basis to be able to transform desire into the path is to have no attachment to the objects of desire and to the pleasures of desire. That's the first step. Do I have attachment? Do I project myself and my happiness into that? Yes. And I'm not ready for it. The same thing. For anger, the basis is not to stop projecting the cause of our suffering into those things that actually is not the right cause of it. Okay, so let's go first to our own level, most of us. Maybe someone is there, but I don't know, but most of us. We start from what? Not following the mental defilements. When they manifest, leave them there. Don't give importance to them. And then slowly remember that they are also impermanent. They will also fade away. First step, don't speak out of anger or jealousy or whatever. Don't act out of it without suppressing it. We are not blocking it. We are simply not following it. It's clear the difference. I'm not saying I'm not feeling that. No, I am feeling that. But I am not following it into my actions. That's the first step that we need to go. Then after that, I'm able not to follow it, and I put my energy into an antidote, into another behavior that I know that is positive. And then from that, gradually we can change it and we can move on. Okay? So, when we go to the second seal, that everything that is impure, doesn't mean that the reality by itself is impure. It means everything that we relate to with selfishness, anger, miserliness, pride, and so on, we make it impure. And by consequence, we will relate with it by suffering, with suffering. It will manifest in a way with suffering. So the solution is not to change the world, but is to change how we relate to the world. And one of the main jobs that we have in life is to deal with our own defilements. That's a full-time job. Okay, but a beautiful one. Basically, what happens is that we don't have so much choice. Is it difficult to cultivate a virtuous mind and to avoid our own negative emotions and to change our bad habits? Is it difficult? Yes. It's very difficult. Is it pleasurable? No. Okay. But then now, is life easy or is life difficult? Childhood, being a baby, is it easy or difficult? I mean, we look at babies and we say, oh, how cute, but I don't think it's so pleasurable to be a baby. Then, being a child, childhood, is it easy or difficult? Difficult. Beautiful in many ways, but difficult. Teenage, worse. Okay, becoming an adult, difficult. Learning to have one's own identity, and then, okay, I need to start work, and I need to understand, okay, do I make a family or not? I get married, I don't get married, with whom, how to relate to other people, all of these things. Controlling my emotions and my hormones or whatever, okay? Difficult, right? Keeping one life as an adult, working, keeping everything on, paying the taxes, coming here, doing that, managing all the problems in life and so on. Is it easy or difficult? I would say it's difficult. Old age? Difficult. the body starts to stop functioning as before, don't have the same strength, then the memory starts losing a little bit here and there, and it's normal, it's part of our life, you know. There's nothing wrong in being old, you know. Who is old at least got there, at least, no? But the point is there. And then dying, is it easy or difficult? I don't remember. We are sure that everyone who went through it was able to go through it up to now. But in this sense, you could say it's easy. But how is the experience? I believe it can be beautiful, but for most of the time, it's not that easy experience. In birth, how is the experience of birth? Easy or difficult? I believe it's difficult. We are worried about the mother, which sure is not an easy experience, but I mean the child is a bit more difficult, I believe. So, conclusion, is it life easy or is it life difficult? Life is difficult. So, that something is difficult is not an excuse not to do it. Because anyhow, things are difficult. So when we are in front of, when we look at ourselves in our own eyes, and we see our defilements, we see this is good for me, this is harmful to me, and to others. Is it easy to cultivate what is good and to abandon what is harmful? No. The fact that it's difficult is not an excuse why not to do it. The fact that it's unpleasant is not a reason why not to do it, because if we're not experiencing suffering for something, it will be for something else. So it's better to suffer for something that will bring us benefit than to suffer for something that don't bring any benefit at all. To sit down and meditate with constancy is difficult. It may not be always pleasurable. I may wake up one day and say, I don't want to meditate, you know. But then what we do, there we are, we sit and we do it. Why? Because we are not afraid of what is unpleasant. Because anyhow, if it's not unpleasant for one thing, it will be for something else. Like one time I had an experience which made me think a lot. Last year, I was coming from a long period, very busy, doing many things, and I was quite tired. And then, for many reasons, I ended up in Beijing, in China, together with my mom. My mom needed to go to the hospital to do surgery for cancer and so on, and I was there helping her. And I stayed for 1 month in Beijing with her. Okay, don't need to go through all the details now. And actually, it was the most wonderful time for all of us there. We had a very good time there. You know, my mom saying, it was a bit strange because we were so joyful, we were so happy while she was going to the hospital for treatment of cancer. Anyhow, that's another story. The fact was that, what I want to bring is that one day I came up, was the end of the day, and I was really tired. And I said, but what did I do today? Nothing. And then came to my mind and I started remembering, and I said, when I do many things during the day, do I get tired at the end of the day? Yes. And when I stay the whole day without doing anything, do I get tired at the end of the day? Also. So to say, oh, I don't do that because it makes me tired, it's not a valid excuse. Because not doing it also will make me tired. So finally, what happens is that, you know, we will suffer. If it's not for one thing, we will suffer for another. It's not because I avoid that suffering that I will not suffer anymore. So basically, it's better to suffer for something that brings us benefit. And the spiritual path is a path of joy. It's not a path of sadness. But this doesn't mean that it's always pleasant and it's always easy. So, in other words, the less we fear suffering, the less we suffer. Because now we are still with defilements, we are still in our own process, so you know, suffering is part of life. So I would not avoid doing something because it's unpleasant, because it's difficult. I don't take that as an excuse, because all the great masters that I have seen up to now, all the people that have developed great things in life, spiritually or materially, did anyone do any of this without effort? No. Was it always pleasurable, the process? No. But if we put energy in the right direction, then we get it. So in other words, when we look upon ourselves, when we look in our own eyes, and we recognize this is beneficial for me, and this is harmful to me and to others. Now, I need to avoid what is harmful, and I need to cultivate what is beneficial. Is it easy? No, but that's not an excuse. No? And like this, we go on. And the fact of not fearing suffering, because it is inevitable, for me is a big blessing. The fact of not fearing problems, because it is inevitable, makes things much more easy. So I don't want to bring a sensation of sadness or difficulty. I'm just sorry if I am so direct. But having our foot on earth, it's useless to create an idealized image. Everything will be always wonderful and beautiful and easy. It is not. But we can put our energy into a direction where things get better and where we can reach a state of well-being. And the good news is that whatever we develop in this direction in this life, we take to the next. That's wonderful, no? So, the essence, when we talk about the second seal, is that it's useless to try to change constantly the world. We need to change the way how we relate to the world. And for that, we need to avoid what is harmful from our behavior, from our emotions, and cultivate what is virtuous and positive. It is not easy, but it's wonderful. Okay. So we conclude here for today. Now we make our dedications. Jetson lame kotse rapten chi nam kartin lech dam losan tempe dreme sasum ki drove munsel taktu ne gyurchi nimo dele tsendele nime kuyan delekshi nintsen taktu delekpe Concho sumke jingi lob, concho sumke modrug sol, concho sumke trashisho. At dawn or dusk, at night or midday, may the three jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to achieve all realizations and sprinkle the path of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness. Repeat after me, ripetete dopo di me. Sem, chosudro, ch, lantudro, lam la parce, miyomarsho. May the mind become the Dharma. May the Dharma become the path. May the path be free from interferences. Grazie a tutti. Thanks to everyone. Ci vediamo domani mattina.